that it can be a standalone post occupancy or incorporated as a part of an overall procurement. Like, hey, not only do we want you to design, build, whatever that is, but like we also need you to think about the back end. So yeah, but both ways as you described it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the great information, and I hope everybody takes advantage of it. There's been a lot of questions I've received as category manager, and so I think it would be great if we can have some more discussion with agencies with portfolios who are doing this kind of work, so they are on the right track from the beginning. So thank you so much for all of you guys' efforts.
Great. Thanks for your support, everyone.
All right, thanks so much, everybody. Our next segment is within the office management category side of the house, and we'll be discussing right-sizing print operations. Just to kind of tee this up and set the stage, as agencies' physical footprint and their telework postures change, it presents an opportunity to right-size and optimize print operations for their new work environments. Agencies, they can benefit from cost savings, from improved business processes, from enhanced access to data, as well as promoting sustainability practices. So the office management category is highlighting agencies who have had success in this area. And if your agency is considering right-sizing in this area, we hope that these best practices and the resources and the success stories that we're going to highlight today can be useful to you. So today you're going to hear from 3 agencies. First, we have a presentation from the National Science Foundation, and they're going to talk about their success story for right-sizing their print operations and significantly reducing costs. And this NSF presentation that will be recorded, and then we're going to stop the recording right afterwards so we can get into any Q&A and go on with the rest of the meeting. After the NSF presentation, we're then going to have a panel discussion with colleagues from NSF, GSA, and EPA, and we're going to hear how they've each overcome specific challenges around right-sizing, centralizing print operations. So we have William Hart here today to brief us on how the National Science Foundation used PrintWise to modernize printing at his agency. He's currently the Chief of Technology and Operations there at NSF and in the Business Operations branch. William's experience spans more than 2 decades in applying IT-based solutions to a wide variety of government's challenges to conducting its business. His experience includes roles as an entrepreneur, software developer, as well as a variety of leadership roles in government and industry. He holds degrees in computer science from the University of Baltimore and a certificate in executive leadership from American University's School of Public Affairs. And before you get started, William, I do just want to make sure we are recording this segment. So give me 1 second here.
Sure.
Recording in progress.
And everybody should get a pop-up on their screen now that the recording is going. And William, you can take it away.
Thank you very much, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. I see that we have crossed over to 12:01, and so we're right on time. I am scheduled to present to you for the next 40 minutes, but I promise I won't take up 40 minutes telling you this story. So this afternoon, the story that I do want to tell you is an extremely compelling story for us regarding how we right-sized printing and what we did at the National Science Foundation to deploy a managed print services environment that just had a tremendous impact to our operations and efficiencies at our agency. And so to begin telling you that story, I only have about 4 or 5 significant slides that discuss this story. But to begin telling you this story, I want to tell you a little bit about how we began here. And you can go to the next slide, please. And so when I arrived at the agency about 13 years ago, of course, printing was in place. The National Science Foundation was founded in 1950. And for those of you that have been around for a while, printing has gone through several life cycles in those decades. Some of you may remember when there was a large print room at your agency and everybody would go to that room to collect their print. So when I arrived at NSF, printing was highly distributed and decentralized. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, in each directorate at the agency, and there are about 11, there are 3 divisions each. In each of these divisions, we had an administrative officer and an IT specialist that was in charge of printing for that division. A division typically has about 60 or 70 employees in it. So this IT specialist would maintain the printing environment for his work group of about 60 or so folks. Now, about this printing environment. So at that time, there were no standards, and I'm talking about 13 years ago when I arrived at NSF, as it relates to between the time of going to the print room and 13 years ago. I must assume that what I'm describing persisted that far back in time. However, we at that time, IT specialists would provide printing for their customers by acquiring the contracts that supplied the printers and all of the consumables and any operations and maintenance that was associated with keeping the environment going. Regarding these local work group printing environments, some of their characteristics were that there might be 10 to 20 different manufacturers of printing equipment at NSF, actually about 20 to 30 different manufacturers. And then within a manufacturer, there were about 10 or 15 different models. And so the operations and maintenance complexity of maintaining this was extremely steep. This was an extremely high administrative burden on the IT specialist staff that was located in the divisions because they were required to maintain all of this. One of the main things that the National Science Foundation does is fund STEM ideas and innovation that comes from industry and academia. And to do this, we've got to meet and study proposals and print proposals to determine who to fund. And so just a large amount of complexity that was associated with doing printing at NSF when I arrived 13 years ago. There was no centralized way of discovering how much are we printing because everybody's doing their own thing with different hardware and different software, if it even existed, that controlled printing in their work group. And 99% of the time, it did not exist. And so a highly complex and disorganized environment, the costs that were associated with acquiring the varied printers in this mix of manufacturers and models, and acquiring the consumables that they use, as well as the administrative burden on the IT professionals that had to execute the acquisition process to acquire these printers and services. Each individual division did their own. And so the picture that I'm trying to paint here is of immense complexity around a standard shared service that basically out of control in our agency. And so what did we do? Next slide, please. We decided to implement PrintWise. So let's talk about PrintWise a little bit. When I arrived 13 years ago and began considering the complexity that I just described, my team and I began market research to understand the printing environment. And at that time, in order to get control or try to get control over printing, we implemented a few operational methodologies that would acquire certain subsets of printing in the agency and try to manage that. That didn't work very well because we did not own all of the printing in the agency. And so our market research in trying to understand our printing problem and wanting to deliver efficiency to our agency led us to GSA PrintWise. And we, by education and experience, are not printing professionals. So when we found GSA PrintWise as part of our market research analysis, that program educated us in managed print services. And what it did for us was it gave us the blueprint of what we should be doing and exactly how to do it, chapter and verse. And we followed it chapter and verse. We did not make any of this up. We may have tailored some of what we got from GSA PrintWise to match our existing requirements, but essentially we use GSA PrintWise as is. So what is GSA PrintWise? GSA PrintWise is primarily a methodology for agencies to use that would transform their printing into something that's referred to in the industry as managed print services. And so in that material, it directed us to step by step how to do this and update our agency. So what PrintWise specified is a roadmap for organizational change management, instantiated for us by taking all of that complexity away from all of those IT specialists delivering it, and then combining it and consolidating it into a single area, my team, that delivers that service to the entire 2,200 employee agency. And so to do that, I want to highlight some of the key things that we use to get that done, along with PrintWise, that PrintWise did specify. And so partnerships is what I want to talk about, both external and internal. First, internal partnerships. It took us about 2 to 3 years to convince our leadership to do PrintWise. We were talking about it and presenting, using the GSA model as to inform our advice to our agency. During that time, we had multiple leadership changes, and so leaders would have different initiatives, and so we persisted through that up until a time when the agency decided to move their headquarters from where they were in Rosalind to Alexandria. And that presented a moment and an opportunity for our senior leadership to take control of printing. It was at that time that we approached them again with this opportunity, and they finally accepted. And then about a year prior to us moving into our new building. And so with that executive sponsorship and partnership, we had organizational authority to take over printing in the agency and prevent anyone else from doing it. And so that was a key internal partnership that allowed us to proceed early on. One of the external partnerships that I would highlight certainly is with GSA via the PrintWise specification. As I've mentioned before, we followed it chapter and verse. a very little deviation. Another partnership would be our industry partnership. As part of the PrintWise specification, there is a FAR subpart 8.8 that does contain instructions to agencies regarding printing at the agency, when to use GPO, when to not use GPO, and how to obtain waivers should your agency's specialized printing situation not be conducive to using GPO as your printing provider. And in addition to providing identification of GPO as an external partner, they also provide acquisition services in their GPO 951M IDIQ, which was what we use to identify our industry, identify and select our industry partner, Omni. So now we have our industry partner in place. We have our executive sponsorship and authority in place, and we have our specification from GSA in the form of the PrintWise specification. So we did not have to think this up. It was there available for our use. So we took it and created an initiative that did a number of things regarding printing at our agency. Our agency had approximately 2,200 employees, and we discovered during our analysis that we had about 1.1 printers per employee. So we actually had more than one printer per employee per person at the agency. That would include contractors. At the agency, when we got started, we were able to reduce that down to about 150 or 60 multifunction device printers that scan, print, fax, and do a few other related things. So we went from over 2,200 printers of multiple types to about 160 when we moved into the building. And not only did we reduce that number to about 160, all 160 of those devices are connected and administered through an application server software that we use to control the whole environment centrally, which did not exist before. This allowed us to do a lot of things. One thing it allowed us to do was introduce new capability like NSF PrintWise Follow Me Printing, which is a capability wherever you are in our NSF network, whether you're remote, hybrid working, or you're somewhere in the building. If you're connected to our network, you can print. And then when you arrive at one of the printers physically, your print is held in the cloud, and you can log on to our printer, find your print, and print it out while you're standing at any of those 150 or so printers. So that's one capability that we deployed in addition to the centralized administration of the entire environment. Another one of the capabilities that we deployed was reduced printer fleet by over 96%. This saved us, we were able to avoid much cost by simply reducing the number of printers that we had. We did not stop when we reduced the printers to about 150, 160 at the moment we moved into our new building in 2017. After we began operating in O&M PrintWise for about a few years, we reassessed our printing environment. And at that time, we had something called the proposal processing unit, which all it did was print black and white letter-sized proposals for our scientists to utilize. Well, we deprecated that and avoided about $800,000 to $1 million a year in costs that were associated with just printing of proposals. And instead, the scientists, if they need to print them, then they do so on some of the multifunction devices. Before, we would just print all of them in many copies and distribute them all over the place. In addition, so we reduced further cost savings by eliminating one of the printing services that we were delivering. We didn't stop there. Just last month, we reassessed printing at the agency in response to hybrid work operations that have been that we've been required to fulfill as a result of the pandemic and the changes to our working operations that that has imposed on us, and so we decided that we could reduce the 150 or 60 multifunction devices further to about 80. So today, as I discuss this story with you, we have 80 multifunction devices at NSF supporting approximately 2,200 folks at the agency. And these devices are distributed throughout the building in a strategic way that is informed by the best practices of the managed print services industry. The best practices of that industry say that you should probably have about one multifunction printing device per 15 people. And so that's what we did. That yielded the 150 to 160 printers that we originally reduced down to. However, we've gone a little further. Right now, we're about 28 to 30 to 1 people to one multifunction printing device with multiple capabilities that make it easy for our print users to print wherever it is that they are. With our follow me printing and secure print capabilities. And so with all of that we did, next slide please, you can imagine the amount of cost savings that we, and cost avoidance that we were able to achieve. We have calculated, and we're a small agency, so it's a big deal for us, but we've calculated a 40% annual cost savings over a period of time up to about between 2017 and 2022. And I would like to point out that these cost avoidances are continuing to accumulate with each operational year that we continue operating PrintWise. And so we talk about that we avoided costs by reducing the number of devices tremendously. And in doing that, we reduced the O&M that was associated with the care and feeding of all of these printers. And that O&M is a tremendous number. Recall that we had a lot of complexity before we got started in models and manufacturers. We reduced the costs in consumables. We reduced the administrative burden on the directorate individuals that previously would provide printing services to their work group. We transferred all of that work to my unit, to my core that operates this program. So There have now, not only have we avoided costs, but we have created efficiencies where these folks don't have to worry about doing that anymore and could perhaps use that time we saved them to do other productive work. And so savings and cost avoidance efficiencies across the board in many different areas that are associated with supporting printing at the agency. And so next slide, we believe that the GSA PrintWise model that we followed is a model for agency. We believe that we have proved it. We followed the PrintWise specification point by point, step by step, and the PrintWise specification from GSA was designed to align with multiple federal government initiatives, executive orders, and directives that existed at the time and that continue to be issued that apply to PrintWise. And so with this program, agencies are able to implement and satisfy and adhere to mandates from OMB and government and the White House. And it is a blueprint for organizational transformation and organizational change management. Inside of the NSF PrintWise guidance that we got from GSA, that guidance contains the leadership and advice of Dr. John Carter, who is the thought leader in organizational change management. So we utilized these PrintWise tools that were specified there and developed under his leadership. Some of these tools were questions and answer matrices that allowed us to understand and predict what kind of questions that we would get from our users, including the answers that we should tell them. And all of these things were specified and we used them as they were. In addition, the PrintWise materials specified an entire communications campaign. We did not have to design it ourselves. We simply reused what was specified there and we followed it, as I like to say, chapter and verse. And so we had, next slide please, we had extreme success in PrintWise, and we're continuing to operate and look for cost savings and cost avoidance. We would not have been able to deploy the efficiencies in transferring of administrative burden and able to extract the various types of individual productivities of operating our program had we not had the PrintWise guidance. And of course, there's some tangential benefits that are associated with IT security and sustainability by doing something like this for IT security. Certainly, the fact that we are able to administer the print environment centrally is something that our IT security folks do like. And in fact, they approved all of the IT security that is associated with our PrintWise deployment. And then sustainability and the environment, well, we have reduced our carbon footprint and the amount of actual things that we buy in order to implement this shared service printing. And so a tremendous success story. And that wraps up my presentation. And I am prepared to answer any questions that you might have about our experience. And before I take any questions, I would like to thank you very much for inviting us to talk about our experience. And I would also like to thank GSA for the tremendous PrintWise guidance that we used and that we found, we would not have been able to accomplish this without it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Recording stopped.
Thank you so much, William. Sorry, I was just stopping the recording in case anybody wants to chat or come off mute, have any questions or comments.
Yeah, hey, Matt. Oh, go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Ryan,
Is it- Before Ryan goes, quick question. Has this spurred any other evaluations on like being more efficient in other manners, or was this just a one-off cost savings project that went successful but didn't go into other areas, or did it? Thanks.
Yes, it did go into some other areas, and so I'd like to discuss briefly how. And so the division that I work in, that my management unit resides in, is the Division of Administrative Services, and our leadership is constantly encouraging us to innovate. So with the deployment of PrintWise, from where we were was certainly a major innovation in a number of different areas. And with this innovation, it allowed us to acquire the trust of the organization when we come to them with some of our other innovations. As an example, not only am I responsible for printing at the agency, but my unit is responsible for Section 508 and accessibility. And so previous to PrintWise, even though we were responsible for accessibility, we didn't really have a program to deliver services for those that need, at our agency, those that need accessibility services in information and computer technology. And so we use the model for PrintWise to convince our agency to allow us to stand up an accessibility program, which we are standing up right now with an IDIQ to deliver accessibility services. We expect that to be in place by the end of the fiscal year. And so what we did was we used our methods of communicating to senior leadership the benefit, the cost benefit of doing some of the innovations that have been the content of our ideas. And we've been successful in getting them to adopt them. And so I would say that we have used PrintWise as a springboard into other areas of service delivery that my unit is responsible for, and trying to innovate there, particularly around O&M and streamlining and innovating to make O&M easier and cheaper.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hey, William, I also saw a question in the chat, but I actually worked with Anna Chiacu on your team once upon a time. I was the program manager for print management. I love seeing how this has all come to fruition. Amazing stuff. You may have addressed it. I had to drop off for a few moments and pop back on. But did you guys have any issues with, did you use any software tools for monitoring or anything like that? Or was it more manual? That was some pushback we got with agencies around PrintWise, and the program was, well, I can't deploy software monitoring tools because of whatever issues with operating on the network. Was that something you guys were able to navigate pretty successfully?
Yes, we were able to navigate that, and so we have complete visibility into everything that's being printed. And so if you happen to print and it goes directly to the printer, we know we collect a lot of information about that print except the content. We have the capability to collect the content. But we do not, because we don't have a use case to do so right now. We also, if you do secure print and follow me print, we capture that information about the print, including the content. So we do have the content if you have a follow me print where the content is in the cloud. And so that brings up these types of concerns about, well, who can see what I have printed? And so at NSF, they continuously remind us that we don't have any expectation of privacy when we use their network and the peripherals and appliances that are connected to it. And so we continue to use that guidance from our agency to remind our customers and stakeholders that, hey, this is how NSF and the government chooses to operate. That doesn't mean that doesn't eliminate our problems. We do have a union, and they are concerned with this also, and we end up advising them of what we're doing so that they know that and can advise their membership that there is this new software that will capture your print and perhaps it can see what is moving around on the network as it relates to printing. As it relates to the software, yes, we use a centralized software. Our solution comes from Kofax. It's called Output Manager. It's a managed print services software. I've referred to it in my presentation as an application server software. And it interfaces with the agency's internal print queue infrastructure. And it kind of sits in between that and the button push of a user pressing print, whereby the software can detect that button push of print and capture the print. And once we have the print captured, we can do a whole lot of different things with it. So yes, we had that problem. We used our communications plan to talk it over with our union to make sure that they knew what we were doing, not to obtain their permission, but to open a dialogue with them so that they were aware. And we made sure that our own management was acquainted with IT's policies regarding privacy on our network. That's kind of how we did it.
Thanks, William. Awesome. Appreciate explaining that further.
You're welcome.
And I think we have time for about one more question. There was a question in the chat from Jonathan Rifkin at EPA. William, have you had an opportunity to convert reduced paper usage into avoided environmental impacts? If not, he'd appreciate a chance to follow up with you and see if they can quantify some of your environmental benefits. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Yes, I'd love to work with you to quantify that. That's part of this that we did not quantify as it relates to the paper consumable. Certainly, we know there's a story to tell there. When printing was distributed, highly distributed 6 or 7 years ago throughout the agency, not only were IT specialists responsible for the acquisition of the printing, the devices, software if they had any, but all the consumables, including paper also. Really don't have any idea how much paper they bought because that probably would be embedded in purchase card records that we didn't have access to. But we can kind of back into some estimates for how much paper they must have been using. And we believe it's a tremendous amount. We'd love to talk to you about how to quantify further that area of sustainability. So yes.
Yeah, William, if I could actually piggyback off of that point, as part of the office management category, office supplies specifically, toner and paper, there's a high correlation. And I would say from the highest spend perspective, like I'll throw out a OEM name like Hammer Mill paper, right? Everyone's familiar with it. Hammer Mill and related like copy paper are probably for the longest time the number one purchased products. But as we saw ourselves, agencies across the government shift and use less and less printers, shift away from desktop printers to shared printers, we saw significant decreases in toner purchases as well as paper. So I think there is some methodology behind that in terms of overall impact by shifting and reducing printer usage, right, which will impact toner as well as paper.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that. I did not mention as part of the work that we did was some governance work to define how our PrintWise program would operate once we transitioned into O&M. And as part of that governance, we do not allow personal printers except by what we refer to as business exception. And we set up a business exception process for our agency users to say, hey, I really do need a printer, a personal printer. I've got a business reason why. And they're able to submit those business reasons, and we can then approve or reject. We don't approve much. I think we have less than 10 personal printers in the agency. The OIG would be one of those groups that would need personal printers, and there are some others. But we got rid of all personal printers. Are there any more questions from anyone? Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you allowing us this opportunity to talk to you about our experience.
Thank you, William. Thank you so much. It was really great to hear. The next part of this segment is a quick panel discussion. So we have William still on board, and I want to welcome two individuals. We have Shelley McGee from EPA, Branch Chief for Information Resource Management, as well as Johnny Wallace from GSA. He's a program analyst supporting the internal print management in GSA's Office of Administrative Services. So what I want to do here is just hear how each of you have each overcome some specific challenges at your agency around this whole right-sizing and centralizing print operations. So thank you, three of you, for being here today. And I would like to just start things off with EPA. Shelley, if you are on the call, I believe I saw you in here. All right, thanks. Could you tell us how sustainability played a part in EPA's efforts and success to reduce and centralize print, and how that helped with the initial buy-in from users and leadership at your agency?
Yeah, of course. And with the EPA, it's part of our mission, right? Helping human health and the environment. And so we were able to. We got an entire campaign to make people aware, and I thought, oh my gosh, this lead-in of talking about the paper was perfect, because it's not just the paper that we're saving, but it's also the ink, and trying to explain that, there's over 375 million ink cartridges that end up in a landfill every year, right? This was some of the information that we got out there to the people, also explaining about how much water is required, right, for the ink and for the paper and stuff like that. And it really did a great job, because here at the EPA, our people really do care, right? And we've got a lot of scientists and a lot of people like that, and it really did strike a chord with them to want to reduce that carbon footprint for that. And so we did we did little video snippets that people could click on. We had things running on we have some video screens that are like in our halls to catch people, to give information as they walk through, and then we did targeted mailings. We also went as far as to go ahead and put it as one of our metrics that we wanted all the regions and programs to get to, was to reduce their printing. We created an easy application where you could go in and see exactly what your print looked like to make sure you're still reducing your numbers. And so we did several things like that to make it just more accessible to people.
All right, thanks so much. And the next, I'd like to just highlight Johnny at GSA. We kind of touched on it a bit during the NSF Q&A, but Johnny, can you tell us a little bit about how data played a part in GSA's efforts to manage and right-size print operations with the utilization bot?
Absolutely. With internal print, our first initial thing was finding out how we could monitor usage and kind of compile data. And through our efforts with talking to vendors outside of GSA, we just thought that the price attached to that type of bill was quite high, and we wanted to look at something internal. So we reached out to our robotics processing automations team to see if we could build a bot that could give us what we needed in the same fashion without the overhead. So with doing that, we were able to construct a bot that used IP addresses to go in, look at usage pages, bring that information back to us, spit it out into a spreadsheet for us to look at and analyze. With that, we were able to identify different printers across the many regions in GSA without having local users go to that printer on a daily, on a weekly, whatever the timeline was. And that bot has saved us so many man hours just from the sheer fact that it spits the information out. We're able to analyze and we're able to identify printers or devices that were underutilized across our regions here in GSA. And it's been a huge help in realigning, resizing, switching locations, and in some cases turning in devices that are underutilized. So yes, it's been a huge asset in right sizing our print footprint.
All right, thanks, Johnny. I appreciate that. And William, we highlighted PrintWise a lot today, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity. If there are any specific aspects of PrintWise that help NSF, get you to that fully centralized print management environment, anything else you wanted to add, please feel free to expound on that if you like.
Yes, thank you. We talked about a lot or during my presentation, and I would say I'm not going to go over any more of it, but there was a certain quality in the GSA PrintWise material that I especially admire, and did we especially utilize, and that was the work of Dr. John Carter in the organizational change management. The work of doing PrintWise, the technical work, is pretty straightforward. It's easy. The hard part is convincing people that when you take their printer that they're going to be okay. And the PrintWise communications planning guidance in the PrintWise toolkit gave us what we needed to talk to our agency. And so that was key for us in understanding how we should go about it, and it worked.
All right, thank you. If I'd like to open up for any other questions that the audience may have for NSF, EPA, GSA, feel free to chat. Feel free to just come off mute if you would like. I'll just give it a second to see if there are any questions. I know the awkward silence is always it's always difficult, but okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I just wanted to share a couple other things that we did at the agency that also helped to drive down costs and improve efficiencies. We buy a lot of our paper through GPO Express, so that's centralized and at much reduced cost. We implemented default printer settings as a standard, such as when folks submit a print job to the devices, it's defaulted to draft quality, double-sided, and some other, I think there are like 6 different features that we put there. In addition to the secure print, so everybody when they print, it automatically will do secure unless they change it and say they want to directly print. Now the importance of that is we don't, let's say you print something and then you forget, you get sidetracked, you got to go do something else. Well, you might forget all about that you printed that document, and if you had directly printed, it's sitting somewhere wasted paper, and it could be a potential security issue. So those were some additional things that we implemented.
Hey Matt, can I say just a quick word?
Sure thing, Jonathan. Go for it.
Sure. Oh yeah, so great conversation earlier about consumables. I thought that was great. Also, one other point that was worth just as kind of a reminder is the hardware itself, and we have existing eco-labels under the EPA recommendations, and previously specific clauses no longer there, but now under the new FAR embedded in the EPA recommendations for equipment that fall under the EP eco-label. And so also making sure that this hardware is registered to these eco-labels also has a very meaningful impact on environmental benefit as well. Just wanted to show a real-world example of how these eco-labels can be and should be being implemented.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. It's a good discussion, everybody. Any other questions?
All of our toner and consumables are recycled centrally. No more walking by and seeing cartridges thrown in the trash can. And we also built into all of our market research, as well as in our acquisition statements of work, accessibility, the applicable and relevant accessibility requirements, so that we get the solutions that we need.
So, Shelley, looks like you're talking, but I can't hear you. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Always the tech issue. All right. Feel free to chat it, Shelley, as we go on. Sorry about that. All right. If the audience doesn't have any other things to add or questions, I just want to say thank you so much to William for your time with the presentation, sharing your success story. Shelley, Johnny, for joining the panel discussion, just like hearing it from your side, from your perspective, the specific challenges and how you overcame them and addressed those. It was really helpful, I think, for agencies to hear that. I want to just take a second. I want to highlight that the PrintWise guidance that we discussed today, along with NSF's acquisition document from the PrintWise implementation and their communication plan, that's now all available on Office Management's page on the Acquisition Gateway. So you will need to log in to view it. We have just a screenshot here. And you can see all the PrintWise guidance, and there's also a link as well to GSA has an acquisition document library for real acquisition document examples as well, so you can click that too. I hope that would be a good resource for everybody. And I want to just conclude this right sizing print segment to say if your agency needs any guidance and support in this area, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Office Management category. We'll have our contact information at the end of our slides today, and we can help you with finding spend under management solutions with capable vendors that meet your managed print services needs. We can connect you with subject matter experts at agencies like we've heard from today at NSF, EPA, GSA, who've had success in this area, be it overcoming the challenges with getting that initial buy-in with users and leadership, going through that change management path, and using data to make buying decisions and support and guidance with the acquisition, the procurement itself. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to connect you with subject matter experts. And this concludes our right sizing print segment. If there's any questions after today's meeting, we're happy to connect you with everyone who spoke today at NSF, EPA, GSA. And with that, I'm happy to kick it over to Susanna in our Industrial Products and Services category to talk about the MERS BIC Award.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. So I hope I don't steal too much of Jonathan's thunder, but MRFS Gen 2 has been awarded. So congratulations to them. I know they have worked super hard for the past year getting that put together. But as a result, as I mentioned earlier, Gen 1 is expired Gen 2 is live. And so because Gen 1 was BIC classified, we would like to get that designation for MRFS Gen 2 as well. And so we've been involved in the process. They've already submitted their pre-qualification document, and it has gone to the PMO and OMB, and they have said, yes, you may continue on in the process. So we are here. We are now going to be having them give the pre-qualification presentation to the interagency team, which at the end I will call for a vote and we will say yes, hopefully. This looks good. We can go forward with presenting the entire BIC package that MRFS has prepared to OMB to get designation. So with that, I am pleased to present Jonathan Hankin, who is the acting branch chief for the SCM facilities and hardware branch. And I personally just refer to him as my BIC SME. He's my BIC guy. So whenever I need anything for MRFS, he's who I go to. So please, Jonathan, let's see all the good things about MRFS Gen 2.
Thank you very much, Susanna. So as Susanna pointed out, it was awarded on time, a little bit of a race to the end zone, but we got it done right in the nick of time. Of majority of the catalogs are already uploaded to GSA Advantage, and as well as FedMall. So you can advance the next slide. All right. So this is largely a continuation of procurement. It remains a purchasing channel, which is, so this would be a purchasing channel for government purchase card holders, not as opposed to, requisition channels. Our main products are tools, hardware, and Jansan, which of course janitorial and sanitation products, so that could be paper towels or hand sanitizer, that kind of thing. And we give our customers access to purchase their products via GSA Advantage, as I mentioned, FedMall, and they can even order directly from the vendor websites or brick and mortar in many vendor cases. So that of course is useful tool for very expedient needs, and